welcome to my tips and tactics video for the spring and early summer. This is a 31 pound 8 ounce I have just caught out of Wyre, a swim called Swamp. I'm going to talk you through how I've caught this one and how I would approach late spring and early summer carp fishing here at Wyreside Lakes. The other side, the sunny side 2 common at 31.8, shows if you get your tactics right in the late spring and early summer, this could be your reward. I am absolutely buzzing with that. So now we are going to get into my late spring, early summer tactics and tips. As always, the first thing you need to do is location. At this time of year, the banks are getting busier. Use this to your advantage rather than your disadvantage. Have a good walk round, politely go into people's swims, say, how you doing mate, have you seen anything, etc. Try and gather as much information as you can. Keep your eyes on the water, wear Polaroids, wear a cap if it's sunny. Have a look in all the nooks and crannies, trees, bays, keep your eyes on the open water. Often at this time of year, especially if there's a weather front like a wind blowing in a certain direction for a period of time, especially if it's new, the fish will often be found in these areas and they'll stay there for a long period of time. So once you have located the fish, next the crucial thing is find a spot. I'm a spot fisherman. I'm not saying that is the way you have to do it, but that's the way I do it. I'll have a good lead around and find the best spot I can feel I can find. Get that wrapped up nice and accurately, depending on what lake I'm on. Sometimes I'll fish 3 rods on a spot if I'm on like Sunny 2 or Foxes, but now I'm on Wyre and I'm fishing 3 separate spots. The fish also really love snags at this time of year, so the hot spot at the minute on Wyre is the island. However, that will change as the year progresses. So once you've found your spots, you've found the fish, you're on them and you're happy, the next thing is make sure you put a rig out there you're confident with and is suited to the environment you're fishing. As I say, I fish on a spot, normally gravel or really hard silt. So the rig I've been using at the minute is a blowback rig. As old as the hills as it comes in carp fishing, it's one of the first rigs after the hair rig, I believe, but I've gone back to it, stripped it back to the basics, and I'm using that with a match the hatch wafter. I've been using this rig exclusively almost for the last 3 months, and it's been doing really well for me. I've had 20 fish out of Wyre in 13 nights, which is really good and I'm really pleased with. It's also tripped up some of the good ones. I've had Wolverine, I've had Tango, I've had a new 30, plus I've had 5, 10 fish well over the 25 pound mark, up to 29 pound, what I don't even recognise. The young fish, what have been stocked in the last few years, and they're piling on the pounds and they're proper darking up, and they are really good looking fish. That is why I'm back on this lake, catching them new ones, because I've not caught them before, and they've got massive potential to be big. Some of them are already over the 30 pound mark, so I'm really enjoying it. And this rig is scoring really well, and it is so simple. And that is what I've been using to great effect. This sinks like a wafter, so it sinks down, the hook lies perfectly flat on the bottom, and the bait is just above it. You don't want the hook to be up like that, as when fish come in and waft it around, it's likely to blunt your hook. So you want that hook laid flat, anchored onto the bottom with that bait wafting above enticingly for the carp to come and have. So now it's time to get 3 of these rigs out onto the spots, and hopefully I'll be back with a fish to show you throughout the night. Here's another example of a wire carp. A little bit smaller this one than the last one, but it's a stunner all the same. Again, coming to a very simple rig and a match the hatch hook bait. Over 35 spoms deployed just an hour before dark, and we're an hour into dark now. So it shows they proper do get on the munch if you put it where the fish are. Then I get this one back and hopefully there's time for another one. Core, we'll check that one out. An upper 20 out of the mighty. It's nice to see them coming through, as good looking fish as that. What a banger that is. Well, this leads me on nicely to talk about the bait mix I'm using to catch these beautiful fish. As I've mentioned, I'm putting a lot in, about 35 spoms every evening, and then topping up with 10 to 15. They're definitely on the munch and they're liking what I'm putting in. So without further ado, I'm going to get on and get this fish back, and then I can show you the bait mix I'm using. I believe late spring and early summer, the fish really get on the munch, both pre and post spawn. So I like to introduce a lot more boilies into my mix. However, I still think attraction is a key element of this mix. So the first thing I do is take my boilies of choice in a mixture of sizes, because I still like them to be grubbing around. I've been using DNA baits for all year, and I've had great success on the bug. So that is what I'm using at the moment. So I start off by taking the 8 millers. They're absolutely perfect. I think they link into the other bits in the mix really well. So I put a good scattering in the bucket, like so. There's probably about 1/4 kilo in there. And then next I will take, again, the bug in 12 mil. And give a scattering about the same as the 8 millers, like so. And then finally I take bug 15 millers, and this time not as many. So I put 1, 2, 3. So that's 3 different sizes of boilies in the bucket. And then I take the matching liquid food. And you don't need much of this because it's really thin and absorbs into the baits really well. And it's really potent and strong. Smells lovely. So I take 1 capful, put it in there, like so. And I'm just going to put a little bit more in for good measure. So that's all in the bucket. And then I try and do this at least 24 hours before the session, 48 ideally. I'll seal a bucket, give them a good shake, a really good shake around, and that glazes the baits. I'll leave them in a bucket for at least 24 hours just to let that liquid food really penetrate them baits, rehydrate them, and have them oozing off attraction. So that gives me my boilie mix. I then had the good old hemp seed. Carp love it all times a year. I think it resembles natural foods such as snails and things. It's got a crunch, it's really oily, and it smells fantastic. So I put 1, 2, 3 into the bucket. And then the next thing to do is add a bit of a visual attraction. The good old trusty, cheap as you like, sweet corn. There's not a carp in my mind what will not eat this stuff. I put a full tin in like so. And then, so now my mix is quite wet with the boilies and it's very thin. So I want to stodge that up a little bit. What I opt to use to stodge that up is 2 different ground baits. I either use the bug one or this one is the nut blitz. I just gently coat it over the bait so the bait's covered, but you don't want too much because I don't want to make this into like ground bait. I still want it to break up very easily. These are just to thicken the liquids to help boost that attraction. And then the famous insect meal. I've been using this for a little while now, and I now know what the rave is about it. Same sort of amount in there, like so. And then my next thing to do is more attraction. I'm using the S7 Smoke, which is a new product. I think it's fantastic. I've done really well on Wyre with it. This is the S7. I think it is a fish meal, but it's fruity, and I think it goes with the bug extremely well. So I'll give a nice squirt of that all over the mix. And then give it a right good mix up. Like so, and that gives you a mix like that, full of little particles of the ground bait, different size boilies, hemp and corn. That's fantastic, and that would work alone, but I like to go that little bit further and really make it my own and stand out. So once I've given it a good mix, like I said, it is quite a wet mix, I like to seal the bucket up and leave it for an hour to 6. Ideally, I'd make my bait first thing in the morning for the evening recast, let that soak in, and then just before you're going to spom it out, open it, and then I like to add a bit of pellet. It's important to do this just before you spot out so they don't break down and turn into mush, because they'd ruin the consistency of the mix. So I take the crayfish maxi mix, put 1, 2, 3 of them in there. And then I like to boost the attraction yet further with the bug bait soak. Give that a nice little squirt. And then finally, the bug spod syrup goes in. Give that a good splash. That's a really heavy liquid, pulls the attraction down to the bottom. And then I'll give that a mix up, like so. And that's your finished mix. It still doesn't ball up, but it has got density to the liquid, so it will drag it down to where you want it on the bottom. You've got boilies, sweet corn, pellets, liquids. That's oozing attraction, very simple, very carpy, and it's been doing me really well. But at this time of year, I do like to give them some food. Like, so this session, for example, I've been putting 35 spoms out each evening per rod, and then I've been topping up with 10 to 15 every fish, and it seems to keep the bites going. They're on the munch, they're wanting to put some weight on, fill themselves up, ready for spawning. So give them some bait, and I'm sure it'll get you more bites. But remember, accuracy is key. That is the end of this video. Remember, keep it simple, find them, feed them, and hopefully you'll catch them. Thanks for watching. I hope you found it useful, and I'll catch you on the bank sometime soon.